Hello, everyone. Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage. If you're joining us today, you are joining us for an interview with Andrew Rannells. We're very excited to speak with him. It's actually been about 4 years to the day since he and I spoke for a cover story that we did timed to falsettos on Broadway, so looking forward to reconnecting. Just a quick intro here before I bring him in. He, of course, has The Boys in the Band coming to Netflix tomorrow. September 30th. That is a adaptation of his Broadway performance as Larry. Ryan Murphy producing, Matt Bomer and the ensemble, Jim Parsons, the list goes on. In addition to that, Blair on Black Friday, Trent in the upcoming Netflix adaptation of The Prom, plus voice work on Big Mouth, Central Park, and many others. He's really become one of the busiest men on the small screen, and we're in for a treat to speak with him. So let me just bring him in here, and we can get this show on the road. Hey, Andrew.
There I am. Sorry that took me a second.
No worries. How's it going?
I feel like a real grandpa that I was like, oh God, it's not working.
Well, this is the way of the times, I guess.
I know. We're all learning new skills.
Exactly.
Lots of new skills.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my falsettos poster in the background there. Just do a plug for
yeah.
that. Thanks so much for having me. This is so fun.
No, thanks for joining us. I'm not sure if you'll remember, it's been about 4 years to the day since you were on Backstage's cover.
That's right. For falsettos, that was very exciting. I mean, Backstage was such a huge part of my early career in New York. I mean, that's how you found out about everything. So that was a real treat to get to be on the cover. I was
naturally,
not expecting that. So that's very nice.
Well, it's great to reconnect today.
Yes, you too.
Congrats on The Boys in the Band.
Thank you.
I was such a fan of the Broadway production, and of course it's coming to Netflix tomorrow.
Yes.
What was it like kind of just revisiting it for the screen versus the stage? It must have been thrilling to reconnect with everyone in that way.
It was. I mean, on a personal level, it was just fun to get to see those boys again and get to work with them because we had such a good time doing the play. And then, as an actor, getting to find new, colors to that character for all of us, I think was just really exciting and very unique. I mean, how often does that happen that you get to do a play and then the entire cast gets to do the film? That's pretty special.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah, I mean, just looking to The Prom later this year, you of course.
Yeah.
You're joining that cast, but the original Broadway cast wasn't a part of that one, so it's definitely a rare treat to be asked to join the Netflix adaptation for sure.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that was I mean, I'm so grateful to be a part of it, but I'm friends with a lot of those people from the original cast, the Broadway company of The Prom, but they were all very gracious and very really lovely about that, and I just hope that I hope they're happy with the way the film turned out.
Yeah, no, I think we're all looking forward to it. I mean, you can't go wrong with Meryl Streep, and then throw in Andrew Rannells. Well, in terms of The Boys in the Band, you mentioned that you're able to kind of explore new shades of this character, Larry. In what ways was performing him, like from an actor's perspective, in what ways was it different for the screen versus your experience on the stage?
I think we were all able to sort of find smaller moments that maybe wouldn't necessarily read on stage. Mm-hmm. And Joe Mantello, our brilliant director, was so great about sort of crafting that and allowing the camera to sort of find sort of more intimate moments that, particularly for Tuck and I, finding those moments of like creating more tension between us and showing where they are in that relationship. So it was it was just an exciting challenge to dive back into it and realize that we get to, not only live with these characters a little bit longer, but also find some new details that maybe we couldn't fully explore on Broadway. So it was really fun.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like since the Broadway run, I've been kind of making my way through this team myself. We interviewed Zach Quinto for the Broadway run.
Oh, nice.
Matt Bomer and I interviewed earlier this year for another project. I connected with Joe Mantello last week. And just speaking with everyone, it really seems like such a passion project and just a personal for everyone involved. So I'm curious to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts. In what ways was this? Did it resonate with you? Did you have a relationship with the text before? Just what's this project mean to you? Big picture.
I first saw the film when I was still in high school, I guess, and as a kid who was like not quite out yet, um, it was a little scary, and it seemed a little dark, and it seemed a little, that original film, which I think is so brilliant, but it has a very dark tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think what was fun about getting to do it now is that I think, a couple things. Like one is that I think we got to explore sort of their love for each other in a different way. That these are friends who are in that room for a reason, and they all really do care about each other. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, things get a little ugly, but they're there because they love each other.
Yeah.
So that was I think we got to lean into some of that a little bit more. And also, from an audience perspective, I think, in 1968, I think that, this was one of the, not there wasn't a lot of representation of queer people at
Yeah.
that time. So it sort of took on a larger meaning of, had to people a lot. I think a lot of people felt like it represented every gay person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really just about these guys. It's about these 9 men, and they're just humans. It's not. There's it doesn't need to represent everyone.
Right.
And 50 years later, getting to do it on Broadway, I think that the audience, just sort of heard it in a different way. And it was so exciting to get to see Mart see that, because I think that he got to witness a whole new generation of people watching this and hearing it for the first time. And it didn't have to be the gay play. It's just a play. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
play. And so that was really exciting for him to get to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's interesting looking at your last excursion on Broadway being falsettos, and then these are two pretty landmark queer texts for
Yeah.
the stage, and now you're kind of on the forefront of bringing or re-examining these stories, bringing LGBT representation to the stage and screen. Is that something that you've always set out to do as a performer, or is it just kind of a byproduct of the roles as they come?
Well, I think it certainly is now. I think when I was starting my career, as any actor does, you're just hoping to work. You're
Mm-hmm.
just hoping to get a job. And I'm fortunate enough that I now am in a position where you can choose a little bit more, and you can be a little more strategic. And those are certainly stories that I feel very passionately about and, want to explore. So yeah, it's been, and people like Ryan Murphy who are telling these stories and are ushering these stories in and sharing them with wider audiences. I'm just am very inspired by the way that he works, and feel very lucky that I get to be a part of that group.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Well, we're of course sitting here for Backstage. Our readership and they are very much kind of the actors and the creators of the world. Between someone like Larry and Boys in the Band, you have Trent coming up in the prom. Blair is one of my favorite characters you've done on Black Monday. But could you give us a peek into what your character building process looks like? How do you kind of get to the bones of who a guy is for the stage or screen?
Well, obviously for Blair, for instance, that was sort of tricky, because you don't really know. I don't know how his story ends.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of just have to find it on your feet a little bit. Something like Boys in the Band, we had a great rehearsal process with all of those people, and Joe Mantello is such a brilliant director, that you get to sit with these people, and you get to sort of, understand them a little bit more. And I don't know. I always just try to uh, sort of befriend the character, I guess. Like I try to like find what I like about him, and how are we similar, or how are we, what makes them tick, and then sort of craft it from there, I
Yeah.
guess. But it's obviously much easier in on stage, because you have or in a film, because you have all of the information. But on television, it is tricky because sometimes, there are twists and turns that writers will throw at you that you're like, oh God, I didn't know that was coming.
Right.
I might have done that other episode differently had I known this is where we're going to end up. But so that's its own very unique challenge.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So something else that you've kind of seems to have fallen into and quite successfully as a performer, voice acting. I mean, you look to your work on Central Park, you look to Big Mouth, of course.
Big Mouth, sure.
Is that something that was always kind of on your bucket list, or how did that resume about for you?
Well, I started my career as a teenager doing voiceovers. So I did a couple animated shows when I was still in high school, which is odd. And then when I came to New York, that was voiceover work was sort of how I kept myself afloat. I always wanted to be on Broadway, but that seemed to be the thing that I was booking more. So I really just embraced that. And for a few years, I worked for a company called 4Kids that did like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and shows like that. And that was my job. That was my gig. I did all of those cartoons. So I didn't do it for a long time. And then when Big Mouth came about, it just felt so. I just love doing it. I love that medium. I think it's really, the writing on that show is obviously, I think it's, super funny and smart. And, but because I think been, doing it for so long, it just felt good to get back to that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you have any advice for actors who might be interested in, if they are a traditionally stage and screen performer who want to dive into voiceover? What tips do you have?
Well, I mean, I wish I had some sort of life hack to tell you. I mean, I kind of fell into it in a weird way. I because I started as a kid, basically. I had a relationship with this company that just kept rehiring me, which was great. But when I did, I can't believe I'm going to bring this up. When I was in Pokemon Live at Radio City, I asked the producers of Pokemon. I said, I've done several, series at this point as a voice actor, so I would love to be considered for one of your shows. And luckily they hired me to do that. But I think it was just that I really sort of sought out. So I guess I don't know how it works right now. But I would say, if that's something you're interested in, like, explore who is making the shows, where are they being made? And just get yourself out there. Because obviously right now, I know that television production is slowly starting back up, but voiceovers, that's something we can all do from our homes right now.
Exactly. I was going to ask you if you have gotten to work at all during these last few months, but I saw you teasing yesterday season 2 of Modern Love.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is so exciting. Is that in production, or what state is that in?
We are in. I just finished filming my episode, so they're in production. Amazon has obviously taken all of the COVID procedure very seriously, and there's a lot of precautions in place to make sure that everybody's safe and healthy, and
No worries. You're back.
I went away because Joe called, so there you go.
Oh, there you go.
But now I'm back. So it was really exciting. So I wrote an essay for Modern Love a couple years ago that then they asked me to adapt. And then John Carney, the showrunner, suggested, he was like, do you want to try directing it? Which I had never done before, but have been lucky enough to work with some really incredible directors. So I talked to Ryan Murphy and I talked to Lena Dunham, and I, chatted with other folks about, how do I do this? And they talked me through it, and then I did it.
There you go. Do you have a bit of advice from them you could share with us? What kind of tips did they have?
Well, I mean, it was more I think it was more just like learning by example. Like when I really thought about it, like when I
Yeah.
think about like my favorite directors that I've worked with, James Lapine is so succinct and so clear and so direct. And
Mhm.
there's no sort of talking around what he needs. He just asks for what he needs, and not in a mean way, but just he's just very direct. So
Mhm.
I had to, kind of constantly keep that in mind, that when I was talking to actors, or I was talking to the DP, or I was talking to, set dressing, whoever, just ask for what you need, and be very clear about it. Just be very concise, because
Mhm.
too much chatter around things can, then the message can get lost.
Yeah.
So I just tried to always remember, like, basically, it was just, what would James Lapine do? Is
Yeah.
kind of what I
Yeah.
kept thinking. I was like, just do what James would do.
Life
And
and
that'll
direct.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I did. I saw that. I did go back and read this essay, so I'm really excited to see your
Oh,
of it. Um, but for those who don't know, it really is autobiographical. It's your own modern love essay. It explores, we'll say, dating in New York City, and also the passing of your father. And I'm curious, just it being such a personal take in the written word, what was that like to be able to revisit it and maybe honor that story and your experience in that way?
well, the nice thing is that John Carney sort of gave me permission to kind of expand the story a little bit, so it's not necessarily fully autobiographical. And
Okay.
the thing that what I was happiest about was that I could sort of explore. I mean, in a nutshell, it's me on a first date, or a character on a first date with someone, and they end up back in one of their apartments, and have sex for the first time, and then my character finds out that his father is in a coma and has, like, had a heart attack and is in the hospital. And when it happened to me, I had to process this with, like, basically a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we had shared, a very intimate thing, having sex together, I didn't really know him, and it was very awkward for both of us. So in writing it, and writing the screenplay, um, it was really interesting and helpful to sort of explore what that guy was going through, because it wasn't great for either one of us. Like, it was a bad night for both of us.
Of course.
And so to sort of imagine what he was thinking. So the script that I wrote is sort of from two perspectives of what I was going through, but also what he was going through, which I think I was really grateful to get to explore that.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a unique opportunity. I'm excited to see what you do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to see it.
Yeah. Well, as a final question here, just as we wrap things up, I like capping these interviews with the advice that you would give your younger self. So you mentioned that you kind of were cutting your teeth in New York, auditioning, reading Backstage. What would you tell that young Andrew when he was first getting his start?
Keep your eyes on your own paper, is what I would say. Is don't be looking around to see what other people have that you don't. And I spent a lot of time in my 20s being jealous of people and being jealous of what other people had. And I regret that. I think it was a lot of wasted energy. Um, you do what you do, you're going to get what you get, and you shouldn't be looking at other people and coveting their careers or their jobs. Like, it's not helpful. It's not a good use of your time. And
Yeah.
put that time and that focus into something else. So that's what I would say, is just you do you, basically, and don't worry about what other people are doing, because you'll get there when you get there. And that's what I had to. I learned it a little later in my life, but I certainly spent a lot of time kind of spinning out about what other people had, and it wasn't helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I think those are good words to leave us with. It's been great to pick your brain a little bit. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I really, you know, Backstage is, as I said, was such a huge part of my first years in New York. So this is always a treat to get to talk to you.
We love hearing that. We love hearing that. All right. Well, we'll see you next time then, and have a good
Yes,
rest.
you will.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.